There is nothing in this world quite like finding a book that has that sparkle, that feeling of, wow, this is good, that you only get from a 5-star experience. And chasing that one moment where you really feel a story click is why I read so much. It's probably why we're all here. But this year I have found it so difficult to find a book that I really, really love. And I don't know if I'm jaded or what, but I kept trying and getting disappointed and trying and getting disappointed. And even the books that I really enjoyed felt like they were missing something. Until at this point in the story, it's 3 months into the year. It was March. I had no 5-star books, no hope in sight, and I finally felt desperate enough to start this vlog, not knowing for even a second what was about to happen to me. So, in the style of many, many others, I will be stopping this video if and only if I'm able to find a 5-star book. And spoilers, we do get there. Eventually. Hi, hello, welcome to the actual vlog. Just in case you're new here, my name is Lexi, and I have prepared quite the assortment of potential 5-star reads for this video, and I have what feels like a pretty good understanding of my taste, so I am very hopeful that this isn't gonna take like 3 calendar months to film. I would love to be posting this video before the end of the month, that'd be really cool, but we'll see how that goes. I also didn't expect to make it all the way to March, still being a hater, so anything is possible. The first book that I'm picking up for this video is Powerless by Lauren Roberts, and Powerless, to my knowledge, is about a girl named Peyton, spelled in a frankly unacceptable way, but you know what? We move past it. It's fantasy. And Peyton lives in a world where everybody has different superpowers. And in fact, you actually need to have a superpower in order to not get exiled and or possibly killed for sport. I don't really know. I'm only just now starting the book, but the point is it's bad. And Peyton is not like other girls in perhaps the worst possible in-universe way because she's just a normie. She's powerless, like the title. She can't do anything, and she seems to just survive through being exceptionally good at cold reading strangers and just pretending to be a psychic, which honestly I respect. I love conniving women in fiction. I think it's fantastic. But her entire life in this very fragile scheme that she has is suddenly thrown into jeopardy when she's unwillingly entered into this big competition that her kingdom runs for people to showcase their powers. Except she has no powers because powerless. What's she gonna do about that? Nobody knows. This is also romantasy. There's a love interest that I believe is the prince of the kingdom, and it's supposed to be kind of an enemies to lovers moment. So we're gonna see. We're gonna explore. The author of this book is a pretty big TikToker, and she vlogged a lot of the process of writing and ultimately publishing this book, and it's gotten like legitimately very good reviews from a lot of the people that I personally cyberstalk online, which has been pretty cool to see. I feel like a lot of the big influencer books are typically not very well reviewed, but to her credit, I'm pretty sure that Lauren Roberts was an author before she ever had an audience. Like, I think that it was writing this book that really blew up her account, but also Lightlark was like that too, and I thought that book was straight ass. So I'm kind of just going off of faith of people I like on the internet, and the premise for this book is kind of cliche. Like, it's a little bit silly, but I'm a little bit silly. I like a good classic young adult fantasy book when it's executed really well. I feel like there's a reasonably good chance that I'm going to love this. It's not like my highest potential 5-star read that I've pulled because, to be honest with you, I want this video to be longer than 4 minutes and I'm paranoid, but we're gonna see. I'm gonna go start it. I don't know how long the updates will be in this video because I have no idea how long this video is going to be. It's all vibes. And it might be kind of inconsistent in terms of duration for each book depending on how low my morale gets. But here at the beginning, I feel great. I've never been hurt before. I've never been disappointed. I feel like the infinite potential of this video is going to boost me through how indescribably tired I feel right now. Okay, off I go. See you soon. Hi, it's been almost a month. I have not touched a book during that entire time. Here's the thing, right? The circumstances of my life right now have made me feel like a Polly Pocket that's inside of an immersion blender. No escape, just watching as my morale gets slowly shred into a fine goo. Sometimes in the past when I felt this way, it has made me read like so many books. Or I forget how to read entirely and then just read nothing. And that's where we've been for the past 3 weeks. Would not recommend it. All I have been doing with my time is Sudoku, rotting my brain on drama that does not concern me online, and just like writhing, thinking about all of the things that I wish I could be doing instead. It's been a dark era. Ha 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 ha. But I'm at the point finally where I feel like I've regained enough self-awareness. Dangerous, by the way, when being self-aware requires you to face your problems, but I've regained enough self-awareness to really, really want and need to do things that make me happy again. Like actually happy instead of just brain rot, no thoughts happy, you know? So I'm going nuclear in this video, actually. I know I told you that I was starting off with Powerless, and I've read like 50 pages of that book over the course of the last 3 weeks that I'm probably going to have to reread because I have no memories of them at all. But before I do that, I'm going with the tried and true method of a young adult thriller. And that's what we're gonna do. That's the plan. I'm gonna try to find joy in one of my hobbies, something that I do legitimately love that I just have not been able to do. And with that, if you've ever felt this way, if you've ever been in a similar boat, if you are also occupying the trenches with me, fighting alongside me, you are not alone, okay? Because I too lose any ability to take care of myself when I'm going through extreme stress. It just evaporates away from me like rain into clouds into sky. My quality of life, my ability to eat meals, my ability to exist like a normal human being on this planet just deteriorates deteriorates rapidly, but you know what? We're gonna get through this. Life is tough, and I am not, but the least that I can do is take care of myself. I'm gonna finish this video, we're gonna find a 5-star book, we're gonna relearn how to read, and it is going to be okay, because this is always temporary. What I'm going through, what you're going through, it comes in waves, okay? And just because I'm currently at a crest in a wave, just because I've forgotten what it's like to be a stable human being, that does not mean that I will be here forever. I just have to pick myself back up, and I am going to do that, starting with reading a ridiculous young adult thriller. That is really where I'm starting, but you have to start somewhere, okay? I decided to go in this trying time with 5 Survive by Holly Jackson. 2 reasons for that. First, it was there, and it looked good on my shelf, so I grabbed it. And I've been meaning to get to this. I really enjoyed A Good Girl's Guide to Murder. That series was fun. I loved the cast. I loved how lighthearted it mostly was, up until it very suddenly was not, and the mysteries were very compelling to me. So I'm hoping that that same magic is inside of here. I'm not sure what I'll do if it's not. The premise of this is that you have these 6 people, and they're all friends. They're all on a really long road trip for spring break to go meet up with their other friends down south, but unexpectedly, in the middle of nowhere at night, their RV ends up breaking down, and of course they immediately find out that it was foul play. So somebody's out to get them for some unknown reason, and all of them have secrets that may or may not be relevant to that, and the hook of the book, I can imagine, is that only 5 of these people are going to be surviving the night. And hell or high water, I'm going to read this book. I'm going to open it, I'm going to read at least 1 page today. The bar is incredibly low, but at least this will get me to open a book. And the idea is that I'll just trick myself into reading more, and then I'll be healed. Perfect, wonderful. We'll see. Okay, let's do this. Let's read at least 1 page. Rah! Crime scene map. Ooh, doesn't count as my page. Hello, it has been 2 days since we last spoke, 2 more days orbiting around our dying star, and I have read approximately 75 pages, which, like, it's not amazing. I'm not expecting a Congressional Medal of Honor, but I feel a lot better about it than I have, because recently I feel like I've seen reading as this, like, massive castle wall, and the longer it had been since I picked up a book, the guiltier I started to feel, but also the harder it got to conceptualize starting one, until it got to the point where it just started to feel like an impossible task for people who are just better and more enlightened than me, and that probably all seems kind of contradictory, and it is, but it's also what it was like. And getting to the point after weeks where I'm finally able to read 75 pages in 2 days, like, would I consider myself to be literate? Again, sources might tell you that that is not completely clear, but at least opening the book and starting is a lot less intimidating, and that feels like some pretty serious progress. So with that, it's about 5, and I'm feeling this, like, rare spurt of motivation right now. So I am going to challenge myself to try and crank through as much of this book as my just emaciated, broken attention span can handle, because I feel like I'm finally kind of hooked into this. I'm really enjoying where the story is going. Things have finally gotten kind of tense. It's pretty different from A Good Girl's Guide to Murder in terms of vibe. Like, it's in 3rd person, and the main character, Red, her primary personality trait is just being completely dissociated from what is going on around her because of her trauma, which was the death of her mom a few years prior to the start of the book, and her inner monologue is completely incoherent. She misses conversations, she forgets things, she just starts staring at the wall and finding strange patterns there when she really should be paying attention to what's going on around her, and honestly, I kind of fuck with it. Like, it's definitely unhinged, but it's very unique. Oh, you can see the window on me now. That's cool. Okay, let's move so the lighting is marginally better. Anyways, things are tense. The RV is no longer mobile. Everybody has secrets. I'm sure that people are betraying each other in a variety of nefarious ways. I like all of the characters for the most part, except for this one guy who is, like, comically insufferable. He's handling this situation like he's on the island from Lord of the Flies, and he's just the worst and nothing else. Like, this man has the depth of an inflatable kiddie pool, but we'll see what comes from that. Maybe he contains multitudes, and I'll tell you more and react to things maybe when I read more, which will be happening today. I'm gonna be reading more of this book. Yes, I am. Affirmations. I am literate. I have not finished the last book I will read in my life, even though that's how it feels sometimes. I am capable of this, and I'm going to read so much. Yes. Okay. I feel like the process of reading this book is reattaching my prefrontal cortex to the rest of my brain. Like, I have not been capable of existing in silence without at least 2 nearby screens for weeks. But look at me.
okay? Thinking thoughts, coming up with theories, reading between the lines of actual ink on actual paper. Many people would have told you that this was just not a thing that was possible anymore, but we're proving them wrong today. Also, can I just say, one thing about Holly Jackson is she will be writing a cute romance subplot into all of her books, and I will be eating it up every single time. I will be going back to her kitchen, and I will be asking for seconds. Look, this man, Andrew, he's not Ravi, but I mean, who is? It's still tender. It's still like exactly what I needed during this trying time.
My face when it's not just a silly mystery. My face when real shit inside of my young adult thriller. The note? Dangerous days for this group of friends, I tell you what. Guys, I finished it. A momentous day, almost 1 month on the dot since I last finished a book. Ooh, we made it though, we sure did. Now, is it 5 stars? No, I'm thinking maybe like 3.5 or 4. I liked it actually, but realistically, I will never think about it ever again. Plot of this was pretty interesting. It was a little bit slow around the middle, but the rest of it was very fast paced, even sometimes to the point of being a little bit ridiculous. I feel like half of the central mystery was completely obvious from the very beginning of the book, but the other half was like so out of left field to the point where if you told me that you predicted it, I would call you a liar. But even though the foreshadowing was just not there, I still found it to be pretty entertaining where it ended up going. This book is only 3 or 4 steps away from Mafia Man Bob Me, and I do respect that coming from Holly Jackson, just always pushing boundaries in her more modern books. I did shed a couple of solitary tears towards the end, just with how Red's grief journey was resolved. Did the book warrant this reaction? Was it justified? Probably not, but look, my emotions are cooking right now, okay? Yesterday, I almost hit a squirrel and started like bawling in my car. Nothing even happened. It was just, times have been tough, but finishing a book definitely helps. But on that note, it's getting kind of late. It's almost 9, so I'm gonna go and eat some cold Chinese food, and then after that, Powerless is back on rotation, okay? Either tonight or tomorrow, I'm not exactly sure, but I do know that it's possible to finish books again, so it's actually going to happen this time, I promise. Okay, off I go. Gonna eat some depression dinner and chill with my cat and maybe read. See you soon. Jumping in on this fun adventure for a second to talk about the sponsor for today's video, which is Skillshare. As somebody who is currently trenched up and pretty directionless in life, as you have seen in this vlog, finding something every day that's fulfilling is not the easiest task, but there's something about learning something new that makes me feel like my brain is still soft enough to be saved. Like, I still have enough neuroplasticity left inside of here to get through this trying time alive, and Skillshare has been my favorite place to go for this for the past couple of months. I would describe myself as a medium artist. Like, I have no innate talent, but I like art enough to have developed moderate skill, and because of that, I've really been enjoying the classes I've been taking on Procreate. I have been using this program for maybe 2.5 years. I make all of my thumbnails there, all of the graphics for my videos, but it turns out that the program has a lot more depth than I thought. I apparently knew nothing. I didn't know about clipping masks. I didn't know that you can make your own brushes. And in just a few hours on Skillshare, I feel like my knowledge has increased by like 400%. But what I have done is far from the only thing that you can do on Skillshare, because they have classes on essentially everything. All the way from like fun, artistic, hobby and craft type things to legitimately useful professional tools that you can use to sharpen your skill set, and also so much in between. Like, with thousands of possible classes that you can take, you're going to find an option that works for you no matter what it is that you want to learn. But if you're worried because the sheer breadth of stuff feels too overwhelming, they also have these curated learning paths, which are basically playlists to ensure that you get as much as possible out of whatever skill you're looking to develop. Whether that's making your own clothes or Procreate like me or writing professionally, they make it as easy as possible to ensure that you're not going to get lost in the weeds. So if you're in the business of learning things and overhauling your entire life more productively and maybe actually meeting that New Year's resolution that you set 4 months ago and then immediately forgot about out of shame like me, you're in luck, because the first 500 people to click the link in my description will be able to enjoy 1 month of Skillshare completely for free. Just think for a second about all of the things that you could learn about in 1 month. The limit does not exist. I strongly recommend it. Thank you to Skillshare for sponsoring this video. I really appreciate it, really making me feel like I've made it on this platform. I love you guys. Okay, let's get back to it. Hi, I'm like 150 pages in, and expanded thoughts later, but for now, I just want to say that if you gave me $1 for every time a male lead in a fantasy novel called the protagonist a vicious little thing, a cruel little thing, a violent little thing, a like threatening sounding adjective little thing, I would be able to put my children's children through college. Can we just please collectively as a society make this into the next "she let go of the breath she didn't know that she was holding"? Like, I would really appreciate it if we could just meme this one out of existence. Like, my fragile spirit can only take so much, you know? Okay, back to it. Go ahead and raise your hand with me if you've ever been personally victimized by book hype on social media, because this book. Okay, disclaimer. I do want to say that I still think that publishing a smash hit that you wrote when you were like 19 is still incredibly impressive. Like, that's really cool. You know, when I was 19, I was just laying face down on a futon and crying to Lucy Dacus over the RA that I was in love with my freshman year of college. So sincerely, Lauren Roberts is doing a lot more with her life than I ever was. But unfortunately, I have to tell the truth at all times or I will just spontaneously combust. So at the risk of making either her or any of her fans upset, I have to say that just at this point, I know that this book is not for me. I'm a fair bit over halfway. I've read a lot today and vlogged exactly none of it, but I just got through the second trial. There's supposed to be 3, I think. And the world building, truly, like, you have these trials, right? And when I say that nothing meaningful about them is ever explained, like, why are they happening? I don't know. Vibes and glory. What happens if you win? What do you get? I don't know. Vibes and glory, presumably. And like we hear all of the time that you need the audience to like you, like all of the elites in the city. It's kind of like the capital from the Hunger Games. They're also voting on the competitors and it's like a popularity contest. And what do you get? What do you win if you achieve popularity, if you win these votes? It is completely unclear. Like, we never find out. It very well might be simply vibes and glory. Nothing about the competition makes sense, to the point where I don't even know why people have to die. It's not an only one person survives at the end sort of thing. That number seems to be flexible for reasons. I don't know why. And I'm not even saying that this book has plot holes, because to have plot holes implies that we are receiving answers to questions that just don't make any sense. But the truth is, we just know nothing, and you're just kind of expected to be okay with that and just vibe along with the rest of the story. And you know what? Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm speaking too soon and everything will have a greater purpose or whatever, but I kind of doubt it. I feel like we're getting far enough in the story where we would have learned anything about what is going on. But with that, usually I'm still able to enjoy things like this that don't make perfect sense. Like, that can be fine for me. And to an extent, I'm having fun, like the dynamic between Peyton and Kai. I like it, okay? It's a tall, tortured, morally gray, dark-haired man ex a sly underdog girl from the slums. You know, I'm easy to please in that way. But at the same time, like, their relationship, first of all, is not really enemies to lovers, in my opinion. He is obsessed with her, obviously, from the jump. And it's this weird combination of complete insta-love, over-the-top flirting. Like, they're bantering, and this man is hitting her with the, "Careful, darling, you forget that spilling blood is what I do best, tee-hee-hee," on, like, page 100. During a scene, by the way, where, I shit you not, they are both holding knives to each other's throats. It was insane. I felt like I was detaching from reality. But then also, despite being over-the-top and insta-love, it's also super slow burn. Nothing actually has happened so far. They're just kind of existing in banter purgatory this entire book, and that just takes me out of it. Like, I'm finding it to be impossible to suspend my disbelief and pretend for even one moment that people would ever talk this way to each other. And that sucks, because I do like some of the ideas. I think that the relationship has some legs, you know, I can see the foundation of a book I would really enjoy here, but it's just not clicking for me, and that's okay. And I don't know, maybe the ending of this book will be fantastic. Maybe it will change my entire life, like I have seen it do to many people online. I don't hate it. I'm going to finish it. But once again, I'm more disappointed than I would have been if I hadn't been hearing so much effusive praise for this book online. You know, honestly, I have no one to blame but myself. Like, I feel like I get bamboozled every time with books like these, and every time I will pick the next one up. I'm gonna keep reading. We're gonna see how it goes. Maybe my opinion will change. It's over. Okay. It's later that same day, by the way. I appear to have jumped straight from no literacy 1 week ago to extreme literacy starting like last night, but whatever. I made it. I got through this, and the ending was interesting, but it was pretty par for the course, I think, for the genre. There was one like really badass scene for the main character, but the rest I feel like I could kind of take or leave. And I'm aware, before I get into my main critique, that this book has so many rabid fans, and I just want you guys to all know that I come by this honestly, okay? I wanted to like this. I truly did. I was hoping for kind of a Cruel Prince vibe from it, but it just was not for me, and here's why. Everything I said earlier today was still a problem through to the end of the book. Answers to any questions at all about how this world was built is a foreign concept to this book. You will not find them here. You do get some answers, but like they're not to any of the questions that I had about how things work. But even with all of my earlier problems, I didn't talk about this directly earlier, but I think that the main reason that this book lost me was the writing style. It's like 500 pages, and it definitely does not have to be, because a lot of the writing is overly descriptive, but not in a way that felt especially profound or well written. It's kind of like, let's say the same thing, but again, and with words that start with the same letters, and then that sentence will definitely be a banger, but repeat it ad infinitum for the entire duration of the book, and it's always very noticeable to me every single time. There's one passage towards the end that, it's not a spoiler, but I do think that it demonstrates pretty accurately how the writing style of the entire book was. She's scared of whatever it is between us. She always has been. That's why she chose to be my enemy, my rival, rather than let herself feel, which is something I'm not accustomed to myself. It's like a tangible tether between us, this consuming connection. I will her to meet my eyes, and when they do, sparks electricity. Everything beautiful, everything bold, everything breathtaking. That is what I feel in her gaze. That and terrified. Terrified of what she is doing to me. She is a vision, a nightmare, a dream, a grim reaper clad in black, come to steal my soul and my heart. I've never seen something so beautiful, so bold, so blatantly wrong for me. She is a devil. She is a deity. She is a man's downfall in human form. She is my downfall. Like, something about that just bothers me. There are moments like this throughout this book where I feel like the author really thought that she was cooking, but it was just so overt and over the top, and like, here's some parallelism. Look at how parallel it is. To the point where it felt, with love, like it was ripped straight out of your average AO3 fanfiction. Except it has original characters. Like, I'm not reading about people that I already care about, and I felt like I was never going to care about them if reading their thoughts like that just made me want to walk into the sea. And someone's gotta say it, it made this book a little bit cringe, I think, at the end of the day. It wasn't terrible. It did have its moments. I do think that there are lines in the book that are quite nice, but it was just too long and too much, and just in need of a much more ruthless editor than I think that this book had. So yeah, that was my main problem, I think, because like, is the story cliche? Yes. Is it confusing? Is nothing explained? Also yes. But lots of average young adult fantasy books are like that, and that's fine. And it can still be fun and good, okay? Like, I watch so much reality TV, you don't even want to know. I can see the value of turning my brain off on a daily basis, okay? But I just couldn't get into this one, unfortunately. I think that it's going to be in the ballpark of a 2 or a 2.5, which again feels harsh because the author is so young, and I want her to keep writing. I want her to keep fleshing out her ideas and honing her craft. And you know what? Honestly, I'm sure she will, because once more, I stand with the minority opinion on this one. So take this with a grain of salt. I'm just a girl. I'm thrilled for you if you absolutely loved them, if you loved this couple, if you loved this book, and I truly do wish that I did too. But anyways, moving on. We're gonna do a pretty significant tonal shift because now that I can read again, I need a significant tonal shift, and I am following up my silly young adult fantasy with Notes on an Execution, a literary fiction book about the death penalty. So off I go. Notes on an Execution is about a man named Ansel, who is a serial killer on death row that is about to be executed on the present day that the story takes place. And the book dips back into the past to explore how he got there, how he impacted a slew of different women in his life, and then ultimately whether he's deserving of what he's about to get. Okay, I'm about to break to go get dinner, but when I say that I have been immobile reading this book for the last 3 hours, I am completely serious. I didn't expect this to be literary suspense. I mean, you know from page 1 who's dying, like who's on death row, so you assume that you know everything that's going on, but that is absolutely not the case. The way that the story is told is you have these present tense chapters that are every hour leading up to Ansel's execution, and they're from his perspective, but they're written in second person. And you realize pretty quickly that Ansel is not a reliable narrator. The things he's thinking and the things that he's remembering about his past are not always in line with the other perspective chapters that we're getting in the book, which are also telling Ansel's story, but from the viewpoint of 3 women that were in his life. One of them is his mother, who was trapped in this extremely abusive relationship and then abandoned him when he was very young, kind of out of necessity, but also out of selfishness. Another is this girl from one of his foster homes who kind of grew up alongside him, but then eventually became the detective who would be responsible for catching him. And then the last one is the twin sister of his wife, the girl that he ended up marrying. And it's just so interesting. I need to know kind of where the story ends up, how everything ends up linking together in the present day. It's just really, really good, and I'm pretty sure it's headed in a direction that I will really, really enjoy, because the book is doing something that's not easy in both critiquing this man who is deplorable, who did awful things to these women and kind of like facing effects of all of the terrible things that he did, but it's also critiquing the justice system and how he's being treated in a way that is still incredibly evil and dehumanizing by law enforcement, because both things can be true. They can both be awful. They don't like cross-justify each other or cancel each other out. Oh, and also the writing is fantastic. I tabbed a section that I want to read to you that just kind of hit for me. And for context, here the detective is thinking about one of Ansel's victims and kind of like what she could have been. As Safi leaned against the backroom wall, Izzy's hair in her lap, she was transported into a hallucination that had stalked her for years now. A parallel universe that felt sickening, nearly fatal in its limitlessness. A highway, dusk, a flicker of long black ponytail. Izzy had died at 16, but she was older here, 19, maybe 20. Windows open, air whipping hard, an old bluegrass song twanging from the radio. There would have been a boy sitting in the passenger seat. Izzy would not have loved him, not here, maybe not ever, but this wouldn't have mattered in the hot flush of youth, his calloused fingers creeping up her thigh, the horizon bleeding behind the Adirondack peaks. In this almost world, the substitute reality that lingered like a daydream, Izzy was never a pile of bones on a table. She was bright and golden, a blazing instant of mundane and perfect glory. Hello? Bars. That's fire. I am really into it. I'm really enjoying this. Again, it took me a little bit to get into, and it's definitely heavy, like it's literary fiction. The vibe of the writing is just a lot of anecdotes like that are just kind of like poetic thought processes that the characters are having, thinking about everything that's happening. But despite that, it's not boring. And I feel like I can taste how many conversations I'm going to be having with people after I'm done with this. Like, have you ever read something like that where it's just like, ooh, I need to make somebody read this in my life so I can go have coffee with them at a cute indie coffee shop and like have intellectual conversation. Like, that sounds ridiculous and kind of pretentious, but if you've been there, you understand. I see potential with this, and I'm still kind of early in this video, but it is what it is. Like, if it ends with this, so be it. We're gonna see. It definitely still has to stick the landing, of course, but I kind of think it will. Okay, I'm gonna go get Peruvian again because it's all I eat, and I will check in probably when I'm done with this, but here's to hope with this one. I think we're close. Oh my god, that was really good. I don't know how to feel. The ending, the last chapter, completely uncalled for. I'll just leave it at that. I don't know if it's 5 stars. I need to think about it. Yeah, I'm gonna give you more thoughts tomorrow, okay? Okay. I'm crying again. It's been like 20 minutes and I'm crying again. And I'm gonna read you a quote that I tabbed as I process what I've just experienced. Grief was a hole, a portal to nothing. Grief was a walk so long Hazel forgot her own legs. It was a shock of blinding sun, a burst of remembering, sandals on pavement, a sleepy back seat, nails painted on the bathroom floor. Grief was a loneliness that felt like a planet. That just really hits for me right now with what's going on. So that entire part of the story just really hits. Not like directly, to my knowledge, there's no serial killer in my life, but she gets it. She gets it. She knows. Hello, it's the next day, and I am still reeling. I'm still not completely healed back into personhood after finishing this last night. I absolutely loved this. I do think it's 5 stars, even if that means that this video is not going to be as long as I expected. This is the kind of book that begs to be thought about and dissected. Like, so many of the themes and the ideas that this presents have what feels like no moral judgment to them. The book is few statements, many questions, and as the reader, you're left to pick up the pieces and try to make meaning about everything that you've been shown. I don't know if that makes sense. That felt too vibey, but it's a puzzle box of a book, I think. And I love stories like that. I feel like they're pretty hard to execute well in a way that feels satisfying by the end, so it's quite hit or miss. But Danya definitely came through with this one. From what I've seen online during my late night binge of every piece of content that has ever been created about this book, more proof, by the way, that it's 5 stars, because nobody does that for a book that's mid. But there's a pretty common critique when people don't like this book, that it gives too much sympathy to Ansel, the serial killer, especially the longer that the book goes on. And with what I said earlier, I do think that's a valid read. Like, that is a legitimate perception of what happens. But personally, I felt like his character was a lot more nuanced than that, because at the end of the day, the questions that this book asks about justice and rehabilitation require somebody who is not just black and white evil, because nobody in the real world actually is. And it can be both easy and necessary to view people that way sometimes. Like, I definitely do. I feel like it's a way of protecting yourself, if you're an empathetic person, against having to constantly pour out kindness into people whose actions or beliefs have made them completely undeserving, into people who have caused immense harm to either your loved ones or to strangers that you still care about. It's really hard for me, at least, to wake up every day and choose to see humanity in people who would not extend me the same privilege. I can't do that all of the time. It's not sustainable. I'm not like Mr. Rogers, okay? This is not my neighborhood. And Ansel's crimes in this book are unforgivable. They're terrible. But the book challenges you to reckon with the question of, okay, that said, what do we do next? Does he deserve to die for them? Should the state be the one that kills him in this weird ritualistic way? Is it possible for even somebody who you might think on a karmic level deserves to suffer, is it possible for that person to still be treated in a way that is completely unjust? What might all of this mean for the legacy of harm that people like Ansel end up having within true crime circles? Is rehabilitation possible for even the worst people? Should we have tried? And again, the book doesn't say yes or no to any of this. It just asks the right questions. Because yeah, you're in Ansel's head for probably a quarter of this book. And the book has sympathy for Ansel mostly because he has sympathy for himself and he still believes himself to be a good person
person maybe who might have been better in different circumstances. But with that, you're still in his head. You're still seeing the way that he views the world around him as something to be manipulated and the women around him as pawns to be disposed of. That's also happening. So it's not as simple as, yes, he could still be good even though he was bad. I feel like the book is so much more complex than that. And that's not even to mention all of the women in this story who I absolutely loved and who were all flawed in the ways that they viewed themselves and their relationships. Because yeah, on the surface, this is a story about how Ansel became the way that he is. But more importantly, it's about the making of all of these women who were impacted on like a soul deep molecular level by his actions. And it's heart-wrenching, like legitimately soul destroying watching all of the stories mixed together by the end, but it's so good. And the writing, again, it's fantastic. Like I tabbed a couple of other quotes that I want to read to you. As the world splayed beneath her, obscene in its beauty, Safi marveled. She had known from a young age that everyone had darkness inside. Some just controlled it better than others. Very few people believed that they were bad, and this was the scariest part. Human nature could be so hideous, but it persisted in this ugliness by insisting it was good. Like, that's exactly what I'm talking about when it comes to how this book portrayed Ansel's character. Like, nobody believes that they're a bad person. Even when they're doing things that are causing obvious harm, they find ways to justify it to themselves. Safi recognized the monster in her own body, a wild creature, reaching out hungry, starving for annihilation. She glimpsed that same craving in Jenny Fisk, in Ask for Suffering. It was the scariest thing about being a woman. It was hardwired, ageless, the part that knew you could have the good without the hurt, but it wouldn't be nearly as exquisite. It's just so good. It's just, I loved it. I loved the pensive but not slow style of this book. I thought it was fantastic. I have basically nothing negative to say. Other than that, solely because of my own cooked ass attention span. I feel like it took maybe 100 pages at the beginning for me to care about what was going on. But that's a personal problem because clearly this book is awesome. Like, it has to be 5 stars. I feel like I never had the choice. And with that, somehow that's the video. It just took 3. I plan on doing this format of video again when my life is slightly less of a circus because I like having the excuse to read whatever the fuck I want, and also I enjoy watching these videos online, and also this video was a little bit of a train wreck. I feel like mostly it was just me chronicling a mental breakdown followed by an Everest-like climb out of the deepest reading slump I think I've had in my adult life. So there's gonna be another one of these for sure, but I'm not gonna like lie to you and say that this book wasn't a 5-star when it definitely was. So we have to call it here. That's the promise I made. But yeah, shout out to Danya for writing my first 5-star book of 2024. I'm not a miser. You love to see it. I can in fact enjoy things still. Thank you for watching. I really appreciate it. I'll be back with my bi-monthly wrap-up, which as you know by now really is just my April wrap-up towards the end of the month. But until then, this one's over. So if you like this video, please drop an actual like. Please tell me every thought you have in the comments. I try to read as many as I can. Please take care of yourself. Please water yourself like a plant and do things that you enjoy and that you love because I love you and I hope you have a good day. Okay, I am leaving. Goodbye.